The opinions expressed on this program are those of the program hosts and their guests and are not necessarily those of WSTU, St. Mary's Episcopal Church, and Temple Beit Chaim. Products that may be mentioned are not necessarily intended as an endorsement. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited. And now, WSTU presents a priest and a rabbi. Call in with questions and comments at 220-9788. 220-WSTU. Now, here's your host.
Good morning, Stuart, Florida. It is Father Christian and Rabbi Matthew Durbin, the most handsome rabbi you have seen this side of the Jordan River, in the studio right next to me. It's a priest and a rabbi. Check it out. Middle East, come learn something. So we are here in the studio today talking about lots of good things. And the title of today's show is Youth Gone Wild. That's a question mark. Youth Gone Wild. So we want to, there's a lot of talk, Rabbi, about our youth today. It seems like every generation does this, right? Every generation criticizes and says, oh, they don't get it. They're lost. They're selfish. But I was reading on psychology today. Psychologists are actually talking about this is actually in a whole other level. Maybe it's because of social media and everyone has a voice now. But the amount of negative criticism and negative commentary upon Gen Y, Gen Z, and whatever the next gens are about being selfish, about being self-involved, about not really caring, about all these things that are not really very pro. Have you been noticing this, my friend?
I think a large part of it too is the competitive nature of where our kids are today. When I was growing up, my mother would always say in the dead of winter, get outside. Go build a fort out of those bricks that were cluttering dust outside. Unless it's 100 below zero, be active. And I think today a lot of our kids are trying to find that outlet that allows them to express themselves in ways that, perhaps they haven't been able to. Today, yeah, I think that there's a lot of challenges with our kids.
All right. So, full disclosure here, Rabbi Matthew, you've never tuned into the show, also has 3 children, right? So he has 3 daughters. So he has an insight that's a little much greater than myself. I am married, and I have one in the oven. So we're expecting one in 3 months. So but out
Good luck.
Thank you, brother.
Enjoy the sleep now.
Thank you. That's what everyone. No one says anything positive. They're just like, oh my gosh, next 18 years, well. Then you'll have to get freedom again.
Well, as they say, welcome to the first day of never sleeping and never stop worrying.
It's just so positive. It's just amazing. All the stuff I get from all my friends and family and my rabbi. Also, too, if you are new to this show, we also have a podcast. So this all gets chopped up and edited, thrown on to the worldwide webbles, and you can go onto any platform. But if you go onto iTunes and you listen to this podcast, please leave a comment. Even if you hate us, even if you're like, that priest is a complete, say that on there, because even when you leave a negative comment, it helps promote the podcast and from iTunes, but anywhere that you listen to it. So, all right. So we like on the show, Rabbi, we're just a couple dudes at the end of the day, and we like to bring on experts. We like to bring on people who really got their ear to the ground on these topics, right? When we talked about Mormonism, we brought in a Mormon. Talked about Jehovah's Witnesses, we brought in Jehovah's Witness. We talked about Christian Scientists. So we're talking about the youth gone wild. Mm-hmm. We're going to bring on someone who's wild, who knows the youth. Mm-hmm. All right. No, we're bringing on someone who's really here in Martin County. She and her husband have created this beautiful artistic home that's way more than that for the youth of Martin County to come to not only learn and grow to be artists, but to learn about confidence, self-identity, leadership, maturity, and we're going to allow her to talk about what that is like. But we have Jennifer Jones, the founder and artistic director. Our Starstruck Theater also knows you, Rabbi, pretty darn well. Mm-hmm. I have had the honor of really getting to know her very well over the last year, because her and her husband really helped bring my one-man show to light. So Jennifer Jones, welcome to A Priest and a Rabbi.
Thank you, Christian. It is amazing to be here with both of you. I am so pumped. I am in between two of the most amazing leaders in our community. So what a great way to start my day.
Well, that's a great way to introduce this. The check is in the mail. The check is in the mail. So Jennifer, we thought of you immediately. We've been wanting to get you on the show forever. We know you are slammed. Yes. You and your husband just nonstop. I know you guys work like 23-hour days. So thank you for being here. And we actually have Peter here in the studio too, which is amazing. He's here to showing support. So Jennifer, we thought of you though, because we want to talk about, we've talked about the youth on here before. We've had different people who are involved with youth formation, whether we had youth group kids from my church, we've had youth leaders from the Rabbi's synagogue and from my church as well. But you bring a whole different perspective, right? You get kids who are coming to an artistic home. And I think when you involve the arts in youth formation, there is an innate vulnerability that comes with that, because as an artist, you got to open up and say, right. You got to say, here I am, world. And so it's got to be a place that's trusting, that's safe. And there's got to be a rich community there. And you have that in ACES there. And so you've seen a lot, you know a lot, and you know a lot about the pulse of what's going on with our youth. And there's so much criticism that's said about the youth. And I think that's there has to be a misunderstood generation because of what is being said about our youth and all the different articles. You would think that we're going to hell in a handbasket. So let's start off this way. Are our youth selfish, self-involved, just social media invested, don't really care about the future kind of kids who know nothing about a good work ethic? Is that true?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think that we're actually living in an era where our young people have an amount of empathy that generations have never seen before. I think that their lives on social media, while of course it is to see the competition, so to speak, to be on top of what's going on, inherent in that is to be on top of what's going on, is to know what's going on in the news, what's going on with music, what's going on with anything that they are interested in, and they just have access to it like we never did before. So I 100% believe in the goodness of young people and in the importance of how they are directed. And, literally and figuratively from speaking from my theatrical world, but they are amazing young people who care so deeply. And there are pressures in that. There are a lot of pressures in caring so deeply. And I think that's part of the problem. Part of what leads to their depression is they are overwhelmed with information that they truly care about, which is the opposite of being selfish. And then it majorly affects them. So all of this really just is going to go back to parenting and teachers and mentors and the positive people in these children's lives who can really redirect how they are thinking about what it is they're immersing themselves in, what it is they're seeing, reading, etc.
It's interesting that the niche that you and certainly Peter have brought to, not only Stewart, but Martin County, and certainly like almost like the tri-county area, right? From Palm Beach and elsewhere, where, a lot of your students come in and you take them through this incredible program of preparation, right? To prepare for a lot of their debuts on the world
platforms.
stage.
Exactly.
Right. And much like Father Anderson and certainly we do at the temple, when we prepare our children for a lifelong involvement with Christianity, or certainly for us, for Judaism, is that there's a great deal of responsibility that we put on our shoulders, as I know that, you do as well. And, through your program, I would assume that there's a high degree of maturity that you take our students through, that there is ownership, there is responsibility.
I think, Rabbi, I'm hearing you loud and clear, and I think the word is expectation. And we have very, very high expectations at Starstruck, and I believe that is literally what sets us apart from other children's theaters. Why we have the notoriety that we do on a national level. And I believe that the expectations that we set at Starstruck should be set by every teacher and every school and every children's theater and just every home. If you don't set the bar high, well, what do they have to rise to, right? And we can talk about that in terms of our characters, human beings. But for children, it's really, really important. And I direct on stage. If we want to talk about a show, I direct them the exact same way as I do when I direct professionals on stage. I do not speak differently. I don't use different language. I don't dumb anything down. I expect them to be off book. I expect them to know their lines. I expect them to work hard. I expect them to rehearse when they're not with us. And there's a beautiful thing that goes along with that, because they are immersed when they are there. And when they are there, they're not allowed to have their phones. And so they're doing something that they love. You talked about that when you first got on air today. And because I am also from that generation of go play outside. And it was great because that's all we were doing. We were doing one thing. We weren't doing homework, but the phone is on the desk. We weren't eating dinner, but the phones are out and everyone's checking emails while we eat. I mean, you were doing one thing at a time. You were immersed in one thing at a time. And that was a beautiful thing, and something that I think is sorely missing in our families' homes today. I think parents have to remember that they have control. And to stop worrying if their child is popular or not, because that's really unimportant. They think it's important, but to place the values on just much more important things than popularity. And if they just understand just that one thing, that will enable them to remove the phones from their children's lives. But this immersion in something that you are passionate about. So when a child finds Starstruck and they love to sing or they love to dance, whatever their outlet is, they are in it to win it. They want to be the best they can be. And, we have teachers that push them to be the best that they can be. But that's so important for kids, whether they're doing theater, whether they're in sports, for them to find something that they love. And you know what? It might be riding their bicycle outside. That's okay. Children should do that.
It's funny when I'm here. This is the first time I've actually heard it put this way, is that in preparation for the show, looking over these articles and hearing all the different commentary upon, if it's hard to put this in just particular generations, but let's say like Gen Z and then on. So I think Gen Z is after millennials. And then I don't even know what the names of the other generations after that. So you see Jennifer, everywhere from 6 months all the way till high school. So let's just focus on like middle school and high school.
Sure.
What I just heard you say was, let's stop putting the focus on the youth. The responsibility of our society is those who form the youth. Those are the teachers. Those are the parents. Those are us as the mentors. And so if we're also bent out of shape about these youth folks who are the common ones, are selfless and selfish and don't have a strong work ethic, well, who's forming them?
Right.
So
what are we doing about that?
Maybe we're not being intentional about creating the structures.
About a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, these middle school kids. Well, if you're complaining about how they are acting and their behavior, then we have to change that. And it's really hard to start changing it when they're 10, 11, and 12. I mean, it's not hopeless. You can do a lot with a 10-year-old. However, we need to start doing that when they're young. So, Christian, start thinking now. You got 3 months to prep.
No, you're right. It's
but
good
seriously,
skills,
it starts right away. And parents just have to remember that they make the rules. They create the environment in their home. I hate to just use the word rules because it sounds so, hardcore, but you're creating an environment. Do you wake up and when your children wake up, is the TV on or are we talking to each other? On Saturday mornings, is it television or are you playing some music? What kind of environment do you want in your home? Is it everybody's up and everyone immediately has their phones, or are we going to have a bowl of cereal for a whopping 5 minutes and then pick up your phone? I mean, there are so many little tiny things that you can do in your home to create the environment. And remember, that environment is also in their heads. That environment, those moments in the morning, those routines that you establish, they carry that with them all day. They get to look forward to something to come home to when they are feeling stress and they are feeling pressure when they're at school. And that's a whole thing I'm sure we'll talk about. But wouldn't it be great for them to know, but when I go home, it's all gone and it's just me. It's just my family. It's just my siblings. And I can relax from those outside pressures. But you know what? If those phones are on, they cannot separate them.
So just to pick up, Jennifer, on what you had just mentioned, because I think it's actually very significant, is how do you, as a professional who sees tons of kids, and when they come in, if they bring with them that emotional baggage, or I've had a bad day, I've been bullied, I've been this, that, and the other, I can
welcome to my life.
Absolutely. And I think I don't want to speak for you, but I would assume that for some of these kids, that the space and the environment that you create says you can be yourself. You can come here as somebody else. You can really reframe who you are. But when you see the child that is not on top of their game, or something is just really pressing with them, what do you do? I mean, do you stop rehearsal? Do you bring that child, in a private, safe space and say, talk to me? What's really going on?
So this is exactly what goes on. Children come in with all of the baggage and all of the pressures and anxieties that they are feeling. And some of those come from their home life. Some of them it comes from bullying and things that are going on in school. And we do exactly what you're saying. First of all, we have the most friendly, warm, inviting, just kind of like our lobby area. And I have heard so many times from so many different students for the last 20 years that when they walk into their purple home, they breathe. It's like their first breath of the day. And these are literal words from countless students. So right away, they are more relaxed. And why? Starstruck is an anti-bullying place. Does it mean we've never had someone who is acting inappropriately? Of course, they're kids, but we shut it down so fast, which is something I wish the schools would do in a more aggressive manner, because they can. But to answer your question, Rabbi, when I see someone struggling, which you can see that in a child's eyes, whether it's me, whether it's one of my other team members at Starstruck, we will always give the child a hug if they want a hug, ask them what's going on. We don't go directly to the problem, like what's wrong. With certain kids, we do. Certain kids we know really, really well. Certain kids, we know what their journey is. We know the problems that already exist and are present for them all the time. So that child we may more quickly take into an office and say, so what happened today? How's it going? For the most part, the children come to us, which is wonderful because it's a very safe environment. And we're very respectful. We let them tell the story they want to tell. It's very hard for a lot of children to tell the truth about what's going on in their worlds. They're afraid for a variety of reasons. But if you can create an atmosphere that is loving, that is safe, they love to talk. They are yearning to be heard. They are yearning to be heard. I really want to repeat that, because I think that there is this thought out there by parents that they are on their phones because they don't want to communicate. I think that is a major, major fallacy. They absolutely want to communicate. But if you're on your phone, why shouldn't they be on theirs? When you are on your phone, it says to them, it sends this very strong message that you are not communicating with them. So then they retreat into their phone. So I think that that parents should really embrace this idea that their child wants to communicate with them. So I think it's Starstruck because it's a very cell phone free zone. We're already engaged with them because we're looking at each other. If I even am in the lobby and I see kids, like it's between classes, and let's say they have their phone out, I go right up to them and I'm like, okay, you are sitting next to another human being. Let's put the phones away and talk to each other. And they giggle. And then right after the insecure giggle, they engage. And it's instantaneous. You don't have to try. in an activity, singing, dancing, performing, rehearsing, and it all falls away.
When you look at a 20 plus career with Starstruck, in terms of go back 20 years ago to the way you had directed students, as opposed to today's challenging world of iPhones and tablets and unplugging, what do you see as the greatest challenge facing our youth today and the greatest challenge 20 years ago?
That is a loaded question. The greatest challenge facing our youth. So 20 years ago, the moment it was time for snack, everyone sat around the circle and talked and had a snack, and that was it. Now it's time for snack, and kids want to reach for their phones. And they want to reach for their phones because they are so afraid of missing some piece of information, right? And so this is balancing what I said at the beginning, which is the positives of that. The negatives are they will be berated by their friend group if they don't know every single solitary thing going on. If someone is broke up with someone, or the hottest, whatever it is, right? So I think that's major. And again, in an environment like Starstruck, other after school clubs just make the rules no phones, and that will heal so much. So much healing can occur if they just take that away from them, even for a few hours a day. It's not a panacea for all of it, but certainly a few hours a day will help. But the big difference is really this idea of the social media. I think it plays a massive role. Children are. I was listening to Dennis Prager. Do you listen to Dennis Prager? So conservative, and he was talking actually about the rate of depression for college kids. And it's funny I'm bringing this up because I'm between a priest and a rabbi, but
we like to refer to it as a rabbi and a priest.
A rabbi and a priest. So sorry.
We still got to work on the branding, so we're still a priest and a rabbi.
Did you hear that joke about a priest, a rabbi, and a director walk into a bar?
I saw that. Yeah, it's on the Facebook page.
So he talked about, he was talking about depression and all of the stuff with college age kids and the lack of community, that they leave their home and then they leave their community, the lack of religion in their lives, all of these things that bring joy, friendships, dating, this idea of, well, no, I'm not going to date. I mean, I'm in college. I've got to prepare for my career, and everything is career focused. And all of these beautiful parts of life, community, religion, whether it's temple, church, whatever, friendship, talking about, does he like me? Should I go out with him if he asks? All these things have been taken away from college kids. Well, let's go to middle school, high school. It's the same thing. There is pressure. We're not going outside and riding our bicycles and just hanging out after school. There's pressure to find a career that you love when you're 12 years old. How are you going to focus on this one thing so that you're great, so that it gets you a scholarship when you go to college? Now, look, I am living in a world where I am training kids to do that kind of thing. But I can tell you, Starstruck is not there to put kids on Broadway. If it happens, great. And it's happened. But that is not how it was created, why it was created, and it's still not what we do. We are there to instill confidence in young people. We are there to imbue them with a greater sense of self-esteem and self-worth, and we do it through the arts, just like a tennis coach does it through tennis. But it is not this singular thing and the only thing that a child should be doing. My students at Starstruck, when they are getting ready to actually be super focused and go that BFA, route for college, I'm like, all right, what else are you doing with your time? What music are you listening to that's not a Broadway show? What books are you reading that has nothing to do with a play or theater? How are you broadening your perspective and your point of view? These are really, really important things that create a human being. And if we're going to talk about being an actor, well, you better be a broad thinking, broad-minded human being, because you're going to be telling the stories of human beings. And there's nothing more important as an artist than understanding the human condition. So as a child, as teachers, as parents, as we have, as a community are raising these children, you cannot be singularly focused. You have to be part of your community, part of your temple or your church, part of a friend group that's not just on social media, on Instagram and Snapchat and all of these things that, so, I to answer your question, Rabbi, I have to learn about hashtags and all the new lingo, and I am on this social media. I am trying to keep up with what's going on, because it makes me a stronger educator, to not get lost in it, but to know what the social conversation is about.
Right.
And that's really important.
We're on air right now with Jennifer Jones of Starstruck Theater, and we are talking about the youth gone wild, trying to understand or looking to understand the generations that are here, the younger generations that get an awfully bad criticism throughout the different platforms and in the media, and we're looking to understand it better. We sound like we're sort of visitors in a foreign land. Like, who are these people? Let's understand. So we're going to keep on digging deeper in this. The number here is 772-220-9788. If you have a question for Jennifer or for the rabbi, for myself, call in. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to go a little bit deeper into this. Like, so what do we do now with this information? And we love how Jennifer is just flipping the script on us. It's not about the kids, actually. It's about us adults, because we're the ones who are forming them. We'll be right back. And welcome back to a priest and a rabbi and now a theater director walk into a radio studio. This is Father Christian from St. Mary's Episcopal Church, and right next to me, or two doors down from me, is the most handsome rabbi you've seen this side of the Jordan River. It is Rabbi Matthew Durbin from Temple Beth Hayim. And so together we are a priest and a rabbi on this wonderful winter day in Stewart, Florida. And with us today is Jennifer Jones from Starstruck Theater,
Hello.
who for 20 years has been swinging away and forming your children into respectable, confident adults who will be running for president someday. So,
Yes.
no pressure on you,
The
my sister.
future leaders of the world.
The future leaders. So she has successfully flipped the script on this radio show. It's all about the youth, us understanding the youth. Are they just a selfish, selfless, non-work ethic having generation? And she's like, let's stop talking about the kids. Let's start talking about the adults because you are the major influence upon them. So, and we might already have a caller. If you want to have any questions for our lovely Jennifer, the number here is 772-220-9788. Jennifer, we talked about this 20-year span you've been in the biz, and you have seen a lot of the trends that have come and gone in our society and the cultural influences that have come upon our youth. And what is have you seen is there something going on now in the 21st century with our kids? And let's just talk about the challenges that they bring to the theater. Are you seeing something now that maybe you didn't see a while ago? Or is it just the same thing? Is you like, guys, kids are just kids. It's the same thing that's been going on and on. Or you're like, no. There's something a little different.
So it's the no. It's different. I actually have been teaching for over 30 years because I also taught in the New York City public school system in New York before I moved to Florida. And then actually I was the director of education at Temple Beit Hayam for 4 years. And you didn't know that, Father Christian?
Are you serious?
You did not know this.
Holy cow. I know you were instrumental in the temple coming to be.
Oh yeah, instrumental in and built the school. Yeah, our Sunday school, Sundays and Wednesdays, and I mean, I have been immersed with the children of Martin County for a long time.
Holy cow! It makes sense.
I will also give a shameless plug both for Jennifer and certainly for Temple Beit Hayam. If you are interested, our doors are open 7 days a week.
Yes, they are.
Come check us out. Come to our sanctuary. As you see our sanctuary, you will see front and center in our
picture of Jennifer.
You will see front and center in our ark, in our sanctuary, a beautiful Sephardic Torah that was donated by you in memory of your father.
Oh, God bless you.
Yes, so I'll plug away. So the temple is and was just an amazing, a few minutes ago, if you were listening, I was talking about making sure that your children are part of community. And if there's religion in your life, to be a part of that in a really, really strong, important way because of the value systems that really shape who your children are and who you are. And it's just so healthy. We hear a lot about and read a lot about meditation, which is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But if there is religion in your life, what better way to kind of shut down and then go and do that on a Friday night or a Sunday or whatever your religion is. But yes, the temple was a massively integral part of my life when I moved to Florida. And I was moving here searching for a community. As so many people do when they move to a new area and they look for a temple or a church. And when my father passed, my family and I, we bought this amazing Torah, and I have, we were just there because our first rabbi of Temple Beit Hayam passed away recently, and Rabbi Durbin conducted a beautiful memorial service this past Sunday, and my husband Peter played the music and sang. He was his fabulous self as always.
Our favorite Catholic.
So,
who sings Hebrew really well.
He is so good
really
at
well.
singing.
Perfect for the show.
He's
it's
part
perfect
of
for the show.
Part of his opera training in college was to sing in French and Italian and German. But the fact that he's got this Hebrew thing down it's mind blowing. You can vision that emoji. So
join us for high holidays of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, where you hear Peter sing Avinu Malkeinu. It is,
and to the same
it's almost as good as Streisand.
You could do a Vino Marino and an Ave Maria all on the same day.
Oh my God! Imagine if he sang Ave Maria in Temple. It would be amazing. Okay, we can't do that.
The new jazz.
She was a good Jew. She was Maria was a good Jew.
Yeah, we all started this way. So anyway, and you know what? Last thing about Peter, not only does he play a mean piano and sing a mean song, but he helped me put the desks together when we were building the school in the temple. No joke. He was there receiving all the orders with his, being the carpenter that he is.
Yes, not just a carpenter. There we go.
So
It's almost
anyway, what were we talking about before we got so into religion?
The changes that you
The changes.
have seen.
Okay, so 30 years teaching, I have seen massive changes, and you know, the sad reality of the changes is that it's not great stuff. I think that the rate of depression that I see in the children, and really young children too, which is, you know, we were talking before about middle school and high school, but let me tell you, there are 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds walking around that are sad. They're sad. They're stressed out. They are overwhelmed. And I think hearing the language from mom or dad or teachers who walk around with their head down all the time, saying words like, I'm stressed out, I'm overwhelmed. This language, we have to be really careful, the language we use around young people. They hear it. They say, you know, you say a word 3 times, it's your word. So when you hear a 5-year-old say, I'm so stressed out, well, they heard that from somewhere, and that is now part of their language. And language is very powerful. You say something a few times, you mean it. It's part of your psyche. It's part of who you are. So, you know, we talk about putting down the phones. Just like you don't curse in your house, perhaps, because you don't want your child to say a bad word. Think about the other words and the vocabulary that you are using that your child is hearing all the time. So that's something to be careful of. But you know, I think how do
you deal with that within your own space in terms of Starstruck? Like, because you have such a wide range of students that I assume some of those high school students learning lines, doing the academic stuff, everything else, family time, and maybe they use a comment of, oh, I'm just so stressed, I'm so pressured, this, that, and the other.
So I
quench that.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. I'm sorry. And I try to turn everything into the positive. So if they are stressed out, I will say that let's talk about that. Tell me your list. I kind of go right to the meat of it. Tell me what you have to do. And they list it, and I'm like, all right, let's prioritize. Let's really talk about this. And so I get them to prioritize. They immediately start to breathe just because someone is listening. That's number one.
Okay.
Someone's listening. That's not holding a phone, right? So someone is listening. Key, right? Next thing is they are able to vent. They have a voice and they want to be heard, and they are getting it out. Getting it out is half the battle, because, you know, it's kind of like throwing your problems up on a wall, and then you can look at them more clearly. And then they prioritize. What's the most important thing now? What's the most important thing tonight and going into your week? Okay. That calms them down immensely. And at Starstruck, I have kids who are doing a lot. Like, they are doing a lot. They have lines to memorize, songs to sing, dance. I mean, and what I find are the most successful students at Starstruck are typically the most successful students at school. They always seem to go hand in hand. Why? Those are the kids that know how to prioritize. And the big thing that I will say to my student who is really struggling and feeling overwhelmed, put down your phone. So here, you're not on your phone, you're doing all this wonderful work. Promise me that when you go home, I know you're going to look at it in the car, you're going to check in, right? But we just talked about the priorities of your evening. Don't mess it up by getting on the phone. You know, don't look at it. Just tell your mom. It's great. Have a place in your house when everybody comes home that they leave them in the kitchen before they go into their bedrooms. You know,
but I also wonder how much of it too is a status symbol. Right, I checked in at Starstruck so that others see that I've checked in and I'm in this space.
I'm an artist.
It's a status thing.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know that they do that. Well, thank you. I hope that they do that. Come on, kids. Are you checking in?
I will actually say at church, we say, okay, this is the one time you can take out your phone. Everyone check in right now to St. Mary's Episcopal Church and share our live feed. Now put your phone away. Yeah. So it's sort of like you shake hands with the devil a little bit, because, you know, there might be people out there who are homebound who need to see this, and it's a form of evangelism. But at the same time, I don't want you on your phone during the service. So it's a juggle.
Yeah. It's a juggle. Well, I may steal that. Every once in a while I'll go, I get so annoyed if I find out that one child, it's not annoyed. It's a big faux pas if you're caught on a phone at Starstruck. But when we have found it, and our amazing stage manager, Missy, she'll go back there, and then I'll say, okay, everyone take your phones out. Let's sell some tickets. Go ahead, promote the show, and now shut them off.
That's
So, if you're going to do it, let's do something together
Sure.
as a community and positive for Starstruck.
Can you go back to, so you said that, this, and I don't want to bring us down, but you're entering into some hard truths here, that you have seen a change in how, the mental health, or just
it's totally about the mental health.
You've seen 6-year-old kids who are sad, and then so have you
they're
seen
sad, they're depressed, and suicide is a very real thing.
You weren't hearing those words in the past.
Oh God, no. And it's another one of those words. Kids throw it around. They really throw it around. And I have had students come talk to me. This one said this, and my friend, and I'm like, they committed suicide? Like, how old was your friend? And we have to talk through this. And sometimes it's real and sometimes it's not. And sometimes because they hear it so much, and we've all read this, they view it as a choice simply because they are exposed to the news, to the words in a way that they just were not 30 years ago. Now, I am not going to speak to the statistics because I don't want to say the wrong number. Does it feel like it's more? Yes. Do I know, because of my work with tykes and teens, that we have an unusually high rate of suicide in Martin County? Sadly, that is true. My children's friends that I have known in our community in some of the private schools that have taken their lives, and it is profoundly, profoundly sad, as you know. So that is definitely something I have seen more of. I absolutely see more depression. I have more students that are in therapy. Therapy is a great thing. Please, please, please do that for your child. If they are struggling with anything, please do that for your children. But yes, I have more students that are in therapy, more students that are medicated. I can also say that a lot of kids that take medication do not take it when they are at Starstruck. It is something that, depending on medication, that we even ask, because some kids will come in with more of a blunted affect. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not the child that I knew a month ago or a week ago. What's going on here? And they don't need it because they're so much happier. They're completely invested in what they are doing. And they just don't need it. And you see,
if they're taking like more of a as needed medication, like a Xanax or something like that.
Or even, a lot of the kids that have ADD or ADHD that need it to focus, and yet they don't need help focusing when they're doing something they love. And that's prevalent in the arts and among teachers of the arts. We all talk about this, my colleagues and I, and we see this across the board. But you have to have a place where there's really not a lot of downtime. Like, we are here to rehearse, and those kids, we're doing something. You come for an hour class, there's no sitting around. You are dancing for an hour or acting for an hour or whatever it is. So that's really important, because in the downtime is when kids get into trouble.
Sure. So it's just tough. I don't want to put you in the position. I know you're not a child psychologist, but you have an incredible amount of exposure, and with the formation of youth and seeing them, and you've the anxiety, the depression, the just overall sadness, the medication, the suicidal tendencies that we hear. I mean, this is a common theme that we've heard just in the last 45 minutes are the devices and the phones. So I'm assuming that has to be a big piece of this, because of the exposure and the overwhelmingness of data, of impressions, of the challenge and the competition. And you hear just the word suicide a lot, just being on there, right?
Yeah.
And so before 30 years ago, it wouldn't be popping up on your screen a lot. So it's in your psyche. So I guess I'm trying to wonder where we. Is it because, can we put our finger that if there's one thing that if a teacher is listening, a parent that's listening, a youth leader is listening, that if we could put our finger on one thing, I've heard community, and I've heard devices and social media, and I've heard how you've been empowering people to be in community, but also how you've been very intentional how just in these last 40 minutes about the devices have got to go down. We need to focus here, and it's creating a structure. So it's hard to put a big brushstroke on this, but I'm wondering where's the hope in all this?
So as I'm listening to you, Christian, one word is coming to my mind, and that is balance. You must have balance in your life as an adult. We all need that. And you have to teach your children and show by example balance, moderation. So a phone is not a horrible thing. Social media does not have to be a horrible thing. The amount of time you spend on social media and on your phone can be a very horrible thing.
Have you had the opportunity? We talk about youth, and you had mentioned earlier that it's really not so much about the youth as it is about the ability of parents to use their influence, and you're not their buddy, you're their parent.
That's it. You are
So
not their
just
friend.
if my wife is listening, I am quoting on this. I am not my kid's buddy. I am my kid's parent. But have you had to have that conversation with parents and their
Yes.
children?
So I am not a counselor. However, after doing this for many, many years, I have many families and many parents that do come to me. And I think they come to me because I know their children really well. I spend an enormous amount of
Yeah.
time with their kids. Excuse me. So, yes.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
I speak to the parents. I try to instill in them exactly what you are saying, Rabbi, that they are not their friend. I mean, I remember being a young mom and my mother saying to me, Jennifer, you're not their friend. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, right. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And I think I learned that lesson even when I was 21 and I started teaching in New York in the public school system. And I had a mentor, Mrs. Harriet Finkelstein.
Mm.
God bless
And
Harriet.
I think she was like, she had surgery and I took her class over and she said, don't forget, teaching is not a popularity contest.
Mm.
You are there to teach, to guide, not to be their friend. And it stuck with me my entire life. And I think that's why at Starstruck I know exactly where that line is.
Mm.
I am so incredibly close with so many of my students, but they know there is a line there. And no matter what, the integrity of my position, the integrity of the teacher, student, director, actor relationship, that is first and foremost. Every decision that I make at Starstruck is for the greater good.
Mhm.
It is not for one child and one family. It is for everybody. What is best for the cast? What is best for the entire class?
Mhm.
And it's not about one child. That is very important as a parent to, I think, understand that philosophy, because if you think the world is revolving around your child, you will send that message to your child
Mhm.
and your child's going to be in trouble. That will lead to a depressed child, because if they think that they're number one, that the universe revolves around them, and then they go in the world and they realize it doesn't, boom,
Mhm.
depression,
Mhm.
boom, sadness, reality smacks them in the face. They're like, oh, this isn't about me.
Hmm.
That's a big issue,
Mhm.
especially the world we live in. A lot of parents, they're just pushing their kids so hard
Mhm.
all the time. Listen to your kids. Look at the signs. Back off a little bit.
Mhm.
Push them when they want to be pushed. Push them when they need a little push in a certain direction. But I think everyone can back off just a little bit,
Mhm.
and we can start in our houses.
Mhm.
Just start in your house.
Yeah, there's my boss has this book that he's been giving out to everyone in the church, especially all the leaders, which is called Boundaries.
Mm.
And how do we create healthy boundaries in our lives? And I think Rabbi, as a rabbi, as a priest, is just instilling those boundaries that, like you said, Jennifer, it's easy to fall into the popularity contest, right? Even I mean, this is for all
For
generations,
everyone.
for everyone,
Yep.
right? You want to be the friend, right? And especially and you want to be liked, right? And so, but then I'm not doing anyone any business, like any good as a priest, if I'm trying to win your affection. Now I'm your spiritual director. That's what I'm here for. I'm not your psychologist too.
Because it's not about you, it's about them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But we all have egos.
Absolutely.
So it's hard. And I think even as a parent, they have egos. They
Mhm.
want to be loved and they want to be liked. But I hope I can send the message to parents that you will be liked and you will like your child so much more
Mm.
if you parent strongly.
Mhm.
Parent
strongly, and then you will raise children that you actually like hanging out with when they're older.
Mm.
And I have two fairly old kids, 24 and 27, and I like hanging out with them. And I like seeing them get up in the morning and read a book and not be on their phone, when they're home visiting. Like, I love seeing that. Peter and I we love that. We love going out to dinner and knowing that no one is on their phone for 3 or 4 hours. It's relaxing.
This is a great way to wrap up the show, because we started off at Youth Gone Wild, and we've gone all the way to Parent Strongly. I mean, that's what this is about. It's about healthy boundaries and parenting strongly. This is not just, we making the youth into this like foreign alien. They're like, who are these people, right?
And if I can say one last thing, there are so many incredible parents out there. Incredible parents that are raising amazing children that I am so grateful to get to work with every single day at Starstruck.
Sure.
So,
and I think one of the things too that was highlighted, and I know we're running out of time, but is Jennifer, what you had mentioned before about community.
Yes.
Right. Whether it be a religious community, your art community, whether it be your academic community, your family community, even your own self community, is that we all form so many different identities, so many different communities. And I'm going to throw in the Rabbi Jewish bit, which is that Rabbi Hillel once said 2,000 years ago, do not, and I stress, do not separate yourself from community. That I think that there is opportunities to be invested in Starstruck community, as well as, say, the Jewish community or the Christian community, the Episcopal community, and to be able to form those identities that form a strong and committed just relationship between all three.
And that's the theme for this show that we've seen over the last 50 episodes that we've had over and over and
70.
Over. Are we at 70 now? You and I are like best friends. But
these guys are so cute.
But absolutely, because it is a missing piece in our society. And there's so many people. We've just had the episode before on loneliness and isolation, and people feel more lonely. And that's not just an elderly thing. That's all generations is feeling more lonely. So we are so grateful, Miss Jennifer, for you to be on the show. If folks want to learn more about Starstruck, learn more about you and Peter, where do they go?
They go to starstruckfl.com. They can drive right over to 2101 South Canner Highway. We are really like the gateway to downtown Stewart when you get off 95. And we have open doors. It's a great purple place filled with music and children, lots and lots of children who are happy and skipping and jumping and singing. And we would love to meet you.
Well, it has been awesome having you on here, and Peter having you here in the studio.
Thank you.
Next
for
time
having
we do
us.
part 2, Peter's got to get a mic because we got to hear from him. Rabbi, what you got going on at the temple this coming up?
Oh boy, we got a lot going on. Join us this Sunday. We have what we call the Treasure Coast Jewish Film Festival. 6 films, 3 congregations. It will be this Sunday at 2:00 at Temple Beit Hayam. We are showcasing the film Prosecuting Evil. It is a film based on the Nuremberg trials in 1945. I hope you will join us. The film is being dedicated to one of our members, Alex Moskovic, who sadly passed away about a year ago. He's a survivor. His son is a film director out of New York. He'll be here on Sunday. We got tons of stuff coming up. Check us out. tbhfl.org. Check our calendar. Like us on social media. We got a ton of stuff coming up.
Cool. As we all know, the MLK celebration is coming up here in Martin County. So St. Mary's Episcopal Church will be walking in the parade, and we'll have a booth at the celebration. So come, let's build community together with our brothers and sisters to celebrate Martin Luther King. So God bless you. Check out the podcast. If you just tuned into this episode on anything, whether it's Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, go check it, like it, share it. We will see you next Friday here on A Priest and a Rabbi. And today, a theater director walked into a radio station. God bless you. Peace.